I don't know if anybody's told you this before, but there are two words in the English language that causes more suffering than just about any other. And those two words are right and wrong. Now, in my professional experience, when clients have struggled with these two words, it 100% of the time came from negative religious conditioning from their childhood. Some adult in their childhood who, frankly, did not have a personal, strong relationship with the divine told them what they should be believing and how they should be believing, instead of helping them develop their natural born God given intuition and trusting the divine within. In this video, I walk Carolyn through a deep cathartic unraveling process of religious trauma that used to cause her so much pain, discomfort, and suffering in her relationships. Imagine if you got some really bad advice in your childhood, and that advice turned into a program, behaviors, and beliefs about God that are incompatible with your own intuition, your inner knowing, and God itself. But in the world of healing, the amount of time that you've been suffering is not related to the amount of time it takes to get rid of your suffering. So watch this video if it would help you to watch somebody heal from a lifelong trauma, or if you have that inner calling to profoundly help people, then let me show you how my heart-centered NLP works live in action. How's everything been? Let's check in since we last met.
Um, Pretty good. So even though I've been having some triggers come up and my body's still getting reactive, I'm still able to manage it better when it's coming up. So that's been good. That feels like it's more manageable. I it's this kind of pulling out of it, right? Like not getting hooked onto the emotion, the fear, the thought, just okay, let's pull back from it. Like there was an incident where my daughter was crying and doing the whiny cry, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? And I was like, okay, and I'm asking her like, what's going on? Why are you crying? And she's not answering. And so I was like, okay, divine, what does she need? Give her what she needs. And she turned around and was like, Mama, hold me. And so I picked her up and was like, all right. She just wanted to be held. I think she was hot when she was sleeping during her nap and just woke up uncomfortable and just wasn't ready to get up. So she just wanted to be held. I just walked around. And I even had the thought of like, well, if she throws up on me, she throws up on me, but I don't think that's what's going on. So I was able to pull out of it and like, okay, what does she need? Let just it's not all on my shoulders. And I know I can handle whatever comes. So I've been much better able to manage the triggers. It's just that my body is still getting reactive. Last week, I don't remember what day, but less than a week ago, um, it came up where she just started crying out of nowhere. And she was like, Mama, get back. I'm like, what's wrong? What's going on? Just and she won't tell me. She's very stoic too. So it's just like she won't,
Mhm.
I don't even know what's going on. So she's crying and crying and get back, get back. Like, okay, tell me what's wrong. Drink some water. What's going on? What's going on? Won't tell me. And then she finally stops crying, but she still won't tell me what's going on. So I know something's up. Like she stopped crying and then she started again. And I'm like, okay, there's that trigger again of like the first time she threw up, this is what happened. She started crying. We didn't know it was wrong. It went away and then it came back and then she threw up. So, but I was like kind of working in my mind of like, well, what are you afraid of? You're scared because you don't know what the problem is. If she throws up, you know what the problem is. So it is what it is. So I was better able, and I again was able to not get as consumed by it. My body was reactive. I felt myself getting reactive, but I was not getting as consumed by it because I was like, we're out running errands. We just got back in the car from the store. I gotta order food to go pick it up. Okay, are you okay? You don't want me? All right, I gotta do this. We gotta get on the road. So I was able to still kind of pull out of it a little. So again, managing it better. I'm just still noticing those triggers are coming in.
And if you were to take one of those experiences, one of those events, and it's almost like take the movie of it and then extract all the pictures, like, 'cause it's a moving picture, so all the pictures, what exactly causes the trigger? Is it a auditory trigger? Is it a visual trigger? Something has to happen outside that's activates, starts something inside.
I think it's auditory.
And it's your daughter, the whiny cry.
Hmm.
And
Well,
it,
and like with that second incident, we're in the car when she was doing that. It wasn't the whiny cry. It was a cry, like something was wrong, kind of a cry. So it's her crying without me knowing the reason. Because then my mind is like, oh, yeah, because if there's crying without a visible reason, it could be her stomach because it's something internal.
and what's your definition of wrong?
Hmm.
Because wrong is something that we say a lot of times that we learn from our parents or habits. But like a lot of times we don't get to, well, we always get the choice to define our own words. Like what does meaning that we put to it? Because that word means something different to a lot of different people.
I think wrong in this case is just something being off and not normal, not not herself, not 100%. I think it's not herself because that's something as I've been thinking about it and ingraining it over this like past year, I'm recognizing it's because it's when someone just seems like they're not themselves, it freaks me out
How is throwing up not yourself?
because you don't
Who's
feel
throwing up?
normal.
But who's throwing up if yourself isn't throwing up?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be that person. Yeah.
So how are they not themselves? What's your definition of somebody's themselves?
When they're in control, speaking, able to speak, able to put words to something. Because it's got something to do with not being able to talk.
So zero babies are in control.
Yeah.
And is that a problem for you?
No. No. Like with my 7-month old who can't talk. No. She's always smiling and herself. She's exhibiting that she's herself by her smiles. So if you're acting out of the norm or out of character, something's wrong.
So what if your daughter wants to grow up and become an actor and acts in like hundreds of different characters?
Between scenes, she'll be herself.
And how do you know if somebody is their selves or not? And how do you know if they're acting as their authentic self or their inauthentic self? How do you differentiate?
I think it's just acting in the way that I'm used to seeing them, whether that's authentic or not.
And if it's different, what does that register in your brain?
Wrong, off. Something is very wrong. Something is messed up with that.
And how close or far away is the divine to that?
Oh, far. I watched a lot of scary movies as a kid, and I think it has something to there's something where like something if someone's not acting like themselves or like if they're not talking, something is wrong with them.
And so you learn that from a young age from scary movies.
Probably. Because I always said too, like before I had kids, I was like, if we ever have a kid, just joking about this, but if we ever have a kid and I wake up in the middle of the night and they're just standing at the side of the bed staring at me, I'm just gonna punch them because that's not normal. Like they're possessed or something. Something is off.
Yeah. How old is that part of you that feels that way, that watched the scary movies that made the decision?
Probably, probably like 6 or 7. I so what just came up for me? I watched Cujo when I was a little kid. Did I tell you about this? I don't remember if I
Mhm.
did. Um, I watched Cujo as a little kid, and there's a scene where the little boy is having a convulsion, and I went into a panic attack. I I, I think that's somehow related with my fear of vomiting because it's just this like can't breathe kind of a thing.
So, can you, well, let's ask the divine presence to just completely fill up and surround the room that you're in right now, just every square inch with golden light.
Okay.
And then ask the presence to multiply itself and travel through space and time back into that room wherever you watch that movie, because I'm presupposing it wasn't in a drive-in movie theater.
Right.
So just ask the divine presence to turn on the lights, because who watches scary movies in the lights? Oh, the lights
True.
on.
Yeah.
Turn on the
Yeah.
lights, unplug or cut the cord of the TV, and then ask the divine to surround that part of you and start to educate. These are actors, and none of it is real. You could even ask the divine to multiply itself once again and send it to, let's presuppose it was at Hollywood. So you can have the divine bring the younger you and the current you to the set and then watch when they say action. And then that's a wrap. We're gonna get bologna sandwiches for lunch or whatever, whoever caters or whatever. Um, and show that every movie, even if it's a scary movie, it's only shown from one point of view. The scary movie is not shown from like the bad guy, the monster's point of view, or a neighbor. If there's like a house like Scream, then crazy stuff's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not showing it from the neighbor across the street that's sleeping. Doesn't even know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's only
Yeah.
showing it from one point of view that the director gets to choose to
Mm-hmm.
decide which it is. And even that cord can be unplugged or cut.
Mm-hmm.
And there really is no acting without makeup, and it's pretend.
Mm-hmm.
How does that younger you receive that information?
The younger me seems very enlightened. Like that's like surprised, kind of.
And then we can even zoom out into bring the younger you from the divine presence into outer space or into the center of the universe and just show that Earth itself is one of the only places in the universe that has fear, that has anger, that has all these different emotions, sadness, bitterness, jealousy. And if everything which is our natural state in life as human beings is actually like causeless joy. That's our natural state. But if we can only experience causeless joy eternally, wouldn't that get boring?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't we, if we had the choice to incarnate and say, there's this place called Earth, and there's this thing called suffering, and there's this thing called duality, and I can only tell you about it, but you can't experience it from the center of the universe. Can't
Mm-hmm.
experience it from heaven or a higher consciousness or a different dimension. You can only experience it in the third dimension when you incarnate, and it's really not going to last long. A lifetime could be 60, 80 years. Sometimes people 2 days, sometimes people 120 years.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really not that long compared to eternity. And do you want to try it? And that's everyone who incarnates says yes.
Right.
But then there's this thing called spiritual amnesia that we get that's like that's why a lot of people love babies so much, not only the way they smell, but the way they look, and they
Mm-hmm.
look interdimensionally into us, and they also look interdimensionally. Babies are very different
Right.
because they're more connected to the source because they're
Mm-hmm.
fresh off the presses, so
Right.
to speak. But spiritual amnesia kicks in, and then the terrible twos, which is really the ego entering,
Mm-hmm.
starts. And then again, there's no egos other than with human beings, no other species, no other animals has egos. So it's
Right.
a unique experience, even that. It's like there's just, again, here's another thing. It's like, well, you are one, but you can incarnate to experience being separate. What does that mean, being
Mm-hmm.
separate? Well, it's an experience that we can create in this arena.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, let me experience that. And then we feel all these things. It's like, oh, this hurts, it sucks, whatever, but it doesn't last long and it's an illusion. It really is not even to downplay people's experience. Because when you're in the height of it, it feels very real. But zooming out in life, it's an
Right.
illusion, it's temporary. Suffering
Hmm.
is optional. Suffering, human suffering only
Right.
happens when people are resisting, period. There's no suffering without resistance.
Yeah.
And there's no suffering with the divine presence far away. It's not possible.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
So how does that part of you, that younger part of you, receive that cosmic wisdom?
That's comforting because with I think with the information she had at the time of religion, spirituality, which was a bad term, um, it was it's very black or white. It's good or bad. It's you
Right or
have
wrong?
to. Hmm. You've got to get everything right and be perfect, but it's not possible to be perfect, and you're never going to be accepted, but you have to strive to be accepted. It's very scary. There's not comfort in that.
And then technically there's no comfort and there's scary, there's no God in that, or God
Mm.
is far away, the divine presence is far away. So that's what's
Which would
really
be my
cool about that.
fault. And
If you
to
choose to
that
decide
kid.
to receive that belief.
Hmm.
But you
Which
can
yeah, which
also
that part of me did.
Yeah, but you can also we can like I can equip that part of you now to say like so you're never good enough like and just instill within my mouth into your heart younger you's heart you're not good enough according to whom? According to the Bible, where specifically,
Right.
and it's the only way to perceive this out of 100, out of infinite ways to perceive it, is it the only way? And
Hmm.
was the Bible even fully translated accurately?
So according to the adult men that I was taught by, because those adult men have answers to all those questions, answers.
According to them.
Hmm.
And let me just see, I can speak even for you, but let me just see if I even want to receive what you say in your beliefs, because let me first take a look at, like, lift your shirt up to see if I'm going to take health advice for you. Let me see
Yeah,
your bank
yeah,
account to see if I'm going to take financial advice from you. Let
right.
me actually hang out with you for a week and let me see how you are with your relationships or when the weather gets hot, the bank account gets low, stress happens, crisis happens, and see
Right.
how you still respond. Kind of like in a way like Job. When the cattle
Hmm.
gets taken away, when things get rough, how are you still going to be connected? Are you still going to be dependent or not?
Right.
And so if you are worthy, and worthy meaning there's four different things for worthy. Are you in alignment with? Are you open to? Are you working towards? And there's one more thing, open to, working towards, in alignment with. I don't know, something else awesome. But if their person is worthy of it, then let me see. Are, if you have something that I want, then I will model after. I will choose to model after you. But if you're
Hmm.
just telling me to do it and you're doing it with fear,
Right.
then no, thank you. I'm just gonna put the divine in between me and you. And if I have
Yeah.
any fear that I receive from you, I'm gonna ask the divine to surround and go inside that and in between us.
Which that part of me would would have been taught that I don't have access to the divine in that way.
And I
And not
100%
like,
agree with them. You don't have access to
yeah,
the divine through them because they don't have an access to the divine because they can't teach you. I
yeah,
do. I have a direct access to that. I'm permanently connected to the divine, so I can
yeah.
easily teach you. But I 100% agree with them. and let that younger
Right.
you know is, I agree, you can't have access to the divine through what they're trying to teach you.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, it seems like the message that part of me got was that they have access, but I do not as a child and as a female. So I have to get the answers from them
But the
and
truth
I
is,
better
and
learn
check
it.
this, go inside your heart and see if this is true. But the truth of it is you actually had, not because you were female or young, but really mostly because you were young and had more innocence, you had more of a connection to the divine than they did.
Which I think gets into this confusing lesson about intuition because I then was taught to not trust that intuition. And instead, I need to turn towards these people to get answers and doubt myself. So enter anxiety.
And the devil has infiltrated every single organization, every like government, yep, check. Religion, yep. Family systems, yep. Schools, yep. What I'm not saying is everything is the devil. No, the
Right.
devil
Yeah.
can only go where it's tolerated.
Hmm.
And the devil and God cannot exist in the same space and the same time.
Yeah.
And the number one vibration, emotional vibration the devil prefers is coming through fear.
Mm.
And fear is only possible when the divine presence is far away.
Yeah.
So if
Okay.
there is fear and you ask for the divine presence to surround and go inside it, the devil can't be there. But even bigger than that, the purpose of the devil, because this is something that people don't talk about, there is a such thing called a devil. It's the opposite. It's the opposite of God on the third dimension, but it's not as powerful as God. Because if it was powerful as God, if they were both in the same space and same time, they would grapple and, oh, this is winning, this is winning. It just doesn't work like that.
Mm-hmm.
The devil is being allowed by God to
Hmm.
even exist. And so then the question is, what's the purpose of the devil? The purpose of the devil, it actually has a purpose, very valuable purpose. The purpose of the devil is to expose and show us where we have not yet consciously teamed up with the divine. That's the
Mm-hmm.
purpose of the devil. It expose
Which,
nothing better than the devil to expose that for us.
yeah, which I was taught there is no devil as a being. It is translated as adversary. So yeah, just like you say, divisive energy.
Well, essentially, God isn't a being either. God is a
Right.
consciousness. And
Yeah.
God itself is formless and it can take on whatever form it chooses. The devil itself is formless, but there can be an embodiment of it. People can allow it and then basically allow it to take
Mhm.
over their actions, behaviors, thoughts.
Yeah. 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 That might be a part of it because I'm wholeheartedly agreeing now, but I'm realizing that 6 or 7 year old does not realize that because that part of me was taught God is a being, but there's no devil being,
But then where?
which
Let's double click into it. God is a being. Where is God? And they would
yeah,
be able to
and
answer it. And they would probably say
yeah,
heaven.
but
And
they
I'd
didn't believe
say,
heaven either. So
yeah. So there was a lot of confusion, and confusion is one thing that divisive energy uses to get you
okay,
to disconnect from here. The heart
yeah,
center
yeah,
is the only way a human being, it's possible to connect to the higher consciousness, to the divine. Can't do
yeah,
it through here.
yep,
So the confusion is a tactic, a fear is a tactic.
okay,
And these people probably weren't super sophisticated to be able to do this. They were being made use of by the
yeah,
vibration. They were ignorant,
yeah,
which isn't
right. They were doing their best. Yeah,
through their egos, which was operating independently
yes,
from God.
yeah, yeah, right. Which is why it was all about logic, right? Like finding the answers to so that there could be some comfort within answers instead of just feeling, connecting with the heart center.
So how does this 6-year-old you feel that the older men that understandably are supposed to be smarter, wiser, more evolved, have life more figured out, and which they do in certain contexts, but they don't in
Yeah.
every context.
Mm.
How does that younger you feel that they don't have it figured out, and just because somebody says something, like words don't equal
Mhm.
truth universally,
Mhm.
period. They don't. And people
Which
could
is
say things
funny.
they believe, but beliefs don't equal truth 100% of the time. Beliefs are ideas people hold to be true. It's not necessarily true.
Yeah. They call their religion the truth. That's it feels uh I think like it feels like it lets me off the hook of like what I'm supposed to do. Of like you're supposed to do these things that I'm giving you. And so for that 6 or 7 year old me to know, you're off the hook. You don't have to listen to what this person is telling you if it doesn't feel right. You actually know a lot more than you think you do, and you know a lot more than they do in a lot of areas.
Correct. And you can take them off the hook and put the divine presence on the hook.
Right. Yeah. Just turning my attention and focus instead of it feels reactive, like I'm just trying to do everything that I'm told I'm supposed to do, and I'm supposed to get it right, and I have to listen to you to get the answers, and I'm not supposed to trust myself, but I'm not supposed to be right all the time. I'm just supposed to be.
But
It feels
right
a lot
according to
calmer.
whom,
Exactly.
and with or without the divine presence.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's according to them and without.
Right.
And
Right.
anything technically, just so you know to help reframe, technically wrong means
Mhm.
disconnection, disconnected. Like
Okay.
without judgment, like I could have this lamp and I can unplug it and it technically be wrong. It's not going to work because it's not plugged in. It's not
Mhm.
broken.
Right.
It's just not plugged in. So then I plugged it in. Oh, now it's right. So, but right and wrong are very
Man-made.
misconstrued.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's so
Yeah.
simple, right? According to whom? Wrong. According to whom? And it's in every different
Right.
context.
Yep.
And that's why, like, even in our training, we talk about one of the first things that we go through with our students is a stretch. Hey, here's the stretch for the remainder of this training. Try to limit these 8 words. Good, bad, right, wrong, should, shouldn't, pass, fail. Try to
Mm.
limit these 8 words from your vocabulary instead of
Yeah.
like, this is what works for me, this is what doesn't work for me. It's such a
Yeah.
different switch. It feels a lot different, but right, wrong.
Yeah.
The issue with right or wrong is when people say I'm right, that means my total being is right.
Yeah. Okay.
You're wrong. If I say like you're wrong, like you say like what is today? Wednesday, or you say Tuesday. You're wrong. It's Wednesday. How people take it is your entire being is wrong.
Yeah. Right.
And so right and wrong, especially like underdeveloped, and when people are taught, when we learn when we're kids, that's how we take it.
Mhm.
And then grades, A, B, C, or D, you're an A caliber person, you're a B caliber
Mhm.
person, you're a C caliber, you're a D, you're an F caliber person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's also a construct too. It's like, well, yeah.
Hmm.
So that's what the inner work there's no personal growth without reevaluating your childhood
Hmm.
with reevaluate like eventually everything. And so what's my definition of this? Like you don't it doesn't have to be overwhelming because you have this internal intuition that tells you
Right.
what is correct and incorrect. Correct and incorrect is technical, right or wrong is judgmental.
Hmm. Hmm.
The issue with judgmental, 99% of judgment comes from the ego. There's a time and place for
Makes sense.
judgment. Like I'm judging it's hot outside, so I have to dress appropriately, drink
Hmm.
appropriately, limit my time, so that's like a judgment call. But generally judgments of like, oh, the world sucks. Well, that's
Right.
one point of view, and you don't even share that same belief your whole life. So
Right. Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And that like that piece of something is wrong. it feels something that I kind of came to at one point was that it feels disconnected, right? Like I feel like I can't connect with you when this is happening. So that makes a lot of sense.
Because when you were 6, without any judgment, with ignorance of your own,
Hmm.
not knowing
Hmm.
your truth and how you allowed other people ignorantly to share a belief and you wanted to be loved, fit in, be a good girl, and you're doing your best. They were doing their best, you were doing your best, but neither one of them are correct.
Right.
That's why it gets really hard. The deeper you go, it's really hard. You can't judge people because it's like, well, they were ignorant to say these things about God
Mm.
that wasn't accurate. It
Right.
wasn't correct, but you were also ignorant to believe that.
Hmm.
So
Right.
if they're guilty of
Right.
ignorance, so are you, and that cancels each other out. Now that
Sure.
those are not even a issue, is it valuable? Like instead of saying right or wrong, should, shouldn't, is that valuable? No.
Hmm.
Should you
Hmm.
accept something that's not valuable to you? No. Here's
Right.
how to say no. And we didn't have that ability when we're younger. Before the ego enters, before it like
Hmm.
activates, we only have an unconscious mind and everything gets absorbed. In the womb, there's no ability to reject information. Everything is comes in.
Hmm.
That's why certain people that just can't get it traction in life, it's because it's so deep and so unconscious, and you have to go to that level.
Hmm.
And it's very rare that people can go to that level within themselves, but also help with other people. So but how the universe works, if you want it bad enough, you will get it as long as you don't quit. Like there's a,
Right.
such a saying, like winners never quit and quitters never win.
Hmm. 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 That 3 feet from gold. Just watch
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a good story. And I was just telling Amanda about it this morning. We were talking about some like, goals of ours, and in May, I did this first jiu-jitsu tournament in Texas, and it was like the biggest one in Houston, and I
Mm.
won. And
Nice.
I felt there was a time when I like I knew, and I last time I competed was 2018, and had bad experience, meaning it was good, but like I had adrenal fatigue, leaky gut, heart
All right.
condition, and so I had pure heart. It was pure heart, and I didn't have all the things I needed. So that it wasn't a bad experience. It was depleting experience.
Mm-hmm.
I went into it with 2%, but I still competed, which was I thought was pretty badass. This
Yeah.
time I had everything. I literally wrote down like the negative things I had, and then I had positive things. It's like a 30 point difference between this one and last
Wow.
one. But I knew the difference that was going to make the difference was I had to go to a level of depth within myself to I felt that it was a spiritual thing. It wasn't a mental thing, it wasn't a physical thing.
Mm.
I just knew there was going to be a point within the match that it's like it's up for grabs, like who really wants this? But
Right.
I didn't know for the first guy it was while we were like standing, like I decided before I even got on the mat. Like that's when I won. This
Yeah.
second guy
Yeah.
broke during the middle of the match where he's like, like nothing was working for him and everything was working for me. But I
Yep.
felt it inside, like I just had to, I not to quit, and I didn't, and then
Right.
I got gold, and that was just awesome. Not only for that context, but it works in every other area of life. That 3 feet from gold is like be absolute. I learned to be
Yeah.
absolute with what you want, but 100% flexible how you're going to get there,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. The mental flexibility of like 100 different paths,
whichever
but
works
having
best.
that value or drive. Yeah. Yeah. Which I don't think 6 or 7 year old me was taught.
No, but and in a way, wasn't able to really receive because you needed your higher self or future self, which is
Mm.
your current self, to be able
Yeah.
to give it to there. But your current self doesn't have the ability without the divine.
Right.
Now that you're connected to the divine, then you can ask the divine just to give it directly to her, but also
Yeah.
everything that she needs according to the divine, or everything she needs to release and hand over to the divine, that can happen too. And everything you've learned between then and now, all that can be just freely given to her, which changes a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
And just keep her close too. I mean, she's still back then. Maybe she'd be better into the room that you're in now. I think she can just give her a big old fat hug. I like the words fat hugs. It just makes me feel so good.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what's really neat about healing. When true healing happens, there's nothing but gratitude, even to these
Yeah.
ignorant older guys,
Mm.
because without them, the truth is, without them, you wouldn't be able to learn this lesson.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Exactly. I've
it's
grown so much. Hmm.
it's strange, earthly phenomenon that there's only two different kinds of teachers. There's direct teachers, and those who teach us what to do, and there's indirect teachers, those who teach us what not to do.
Hmm.
And they're both equally valuable. It's just
Yeah.
these are
Yeah.
uncomfortable, and it's great for most people, but they're equal. We're going to get both. And so the sooner we recognize, are you a direct teacher, indirect teacher? And usually direct is positive, nurturing, connected masculine, and connected feminine. Um, the on the other side is indirect is like cold, or could be fiery, could be angry, but it's more like it's disconnected feminine, disconnected masculine. So this one is
Yeah.
connected, this one's disconnected, but they're teaching you what not to do. Like if somebody like
Uh-huh.
yells and swears at you, then it's like, well, that doesn't feel good when I receive it, so I'm not gonna do it to other people. But you know what? It's like there's multidimensional lessons, but also I need to put some boundaries up because I really
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't have let you get close. I talking to a client earlier before a couple hours ago, and um I, I'm at a interesting part of my jujitsu journey where I'm just learning a lot still. Like I'm still learning about myself and everything. And in jujitsu, there's called rolling. So after class or part of class, you for 5 minutes generally or 10 minutes slap, bump, and then you grapple. Like you try to do the submission, play jujitsu
Hmm.
game. There's different levels to it. There's people who are called like flow rolling, which is like 30%, 50%. It's just really chill. It's almost like capoeira on the ground, kind of like
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah.
And then there's letting people work. So if somebody's like not as good as me, it's just
Hmm.
if we're going head to head and there's no competition, I let them work. So then
Yeah.
I'll get in
Okay.
really deep positions, I get a big choke, and then I'll like get like 90 to 98%, and then I'll try getting out of it because it's good to help with other
Yeah.
higher people do it. Then there's like, just kind of competition or playing. So basically I was on class Monday and I let somebody who's 270 pounds. And my goal was because I have this world champions tournament coming up in Vegas in September, and
Hmm.
my goal right now is like to beat everybody by points. And points is like if I get more of a takedown, dominant position, get their back, get their full mount. So I'm trying to beat everybody on points, but then it was really hot out, and we don't have AC. There's just a huge doors are open, fans, but
Yeah.
it's hot. It's hot. It's not like as hot as outside, but it's hot. And
Yeah.
it threw me off a little bit. It threw off my game plan. And then so
Yeah.
then I started to, instead of like trying to beat everyone at points, I was trying to play. And then playing is
Okay.
like
Yeah.
stop bump. I don't really have a goal. Let's just see where our bodies go, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Well, this guy got to the point and he was doing something else, and I gave him my back because nobody submitted me in Texas. I have a really good back defense when somebody's on my back.
Okay.
But I tried to go for a submission, and then he took his forearm and he started like grinding it on my lips. So like as my teeth was going against, and I can still feel it right now.
Hmm.
And at the very end, he's like, "Oh, sorry about doing that," and if I had more time to think, because my guard was down because I was playing. My guard's up a little bit more if I'm like trying to get points. I'm trying to win on
Okay,
points
yeah,
versus seconds. But playing, guard's down. So this happened, and he's like, sorry about that. I was like, without being a victim, I said it's on. Like I shouldn't have been in that position. Like I mean, we
right.
were playing, so I didn't think you were gonna do it, but now I know, so I recalibrated.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I'm still thinking about him. It's not like he's not living rent free in my head. It's just I'm really because of the pain still there. Pain means pay attention. And
Mm,
so what is the lesson? And the longer the pain is, the more like we either haven't learned the lesson or you need to learn more. That's just either the
that
way
makes
it is.
sense. Yeah.
And so for me, it's not like I haven't learned the lesson, but the lesson for me is it doesn't matter if it's still hot. Stick to the game
Yeah.
plan. And I needed Monday to recalibrate for the next class. But it's just like he was a teacher. He's from a deeper
Hmm.
spiritual level. I asked, he's teaching me indirectly. I mean, he's
Yeah.
not negative or anything. He's a good dude. I'm just
Right.
saying, but unconsciously he's teaching me
Right.
to like step up my game because I literally
Yeah.
told people in my gym, like, I need you guys to help me become a world champion. And people are doing it to their own degree, but this is how he's doing
Yeah.
it. So like it doesn't matter if it's hot, still go for the points.
Right.
And
Right.
so
Exactly.
there could be little teachers from like weekly, monthly, or from childhood or whatever, but they're just every teacher is important. That's what I tell people when they don't have a strong
Hmm.
relationship with the divine, then that's like the best relationship. But then there's even more more important than the divine, the personal relationship with the divine. This is like a hierarchy. So it's most people
Mm.
operate it by themselves and then they get the divine, like this is the best thing. But then higher than that is life.
Life
Life is
school.
actually
Yeah.
a bigger teacher than the divine.
Yeah.
But then even higher than that, everything is the divine.
Sure.
So
Yep.
it's
Yeah.
like a hierarchy. It's like I don't have the divine. Okay, now I have this. This is the best thing. And I say like, yeah, well, but life is actually a bigger than God. Yes. I don't say
Yeah.
it right away, but then at a certain point I say
Right.
yes. They're like, how can life be bigger than God? I'm like, well, just see. And then they start to be like, oh my God. And they see all the teachers, they accept all the teachers and all the lessons of life.
Right.
And they're seeing, and from an even higher level than that, everything is God.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Yep. That makes sense. Because
Because it's
I
like,
mean, again, yeah, it's this like we have to incarnate here to life school because otherwise those lessons aren't there. Even though in that space you are at one with divine. So that does
but
make sense. Yeah.
eternally, it gets boring.
Do what?
Eternally, it gets boring. Eternity is boring if it's
Yeah.
one thing.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And that's why we all came to
Yep.
play. As crazy as it sounds, or as crazy as it can be. But then why is it crazy for some people and not other people? Because, like, what is their mindsets? And then
Hmm.
how did you get those mindsets? And what is the lessons that you need to learn? So it's really about growth,
Yeah. Yeah.
learning growth,
Right.
experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I remember as a kid, the concept of eternity terrified me. That was very scary for me. And I mean, I think part of
And
that,
it was,
is just how your brain is evolving at that stage, how it's developed. But
and your
yeah, to
concept
have
of eternity was created without the divine.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Again, it's that confusion and fear. Yeah, yeah,
Which are
that
the
makes sense.
devil's two favorite vibrations.
Yeah,
Which once I found that
that
out, I
makes
thought it was awesome.
sense.
Once I found like, but you even hear it like in politics or in movies or whatever. Like I think it was Nixon, but the only thing it was a JFK or Nixon, whatever, one of them two. But the only thing to fear is fear itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That never resonated with me. And then once I like went deep within myself, and I'm like, then the divine told me there's nothing to fear, including fear itself.
Mm, mm, mm.
And I'm like, yeah, I like that one better. So I started saying that. And then
Yeah.
people say, like, I mean, I'm a God-fearing man. Okay, well, the devil, the number one thing that can only come through really mostly is fear. And God and fear technically can't exist in the same space and the same time because if there was
Yeah.
fear is literally the absence of God. It literally is like a check engine light in your car, but in your emotional
Mm,
body, that the divine is far away. And if
yeah.
you see that, and which is awesome because the problem, 90% of the time, the solution is the opposite of the problem. So the problem is the divine's far away. What happens if the divine comes halfway? Does it feel 50% better? Yes. For 100% of the
Right.
time of the people. What about like 25 more percent? Is it 75%? Yeah. What if it surrounds you? How's that feel? Better. Go inside you. Even better. What if you
Yeah.
learn to live like that? You have to
Right.
condition it, but what if you
Right.
have all parts of you on every level?
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So kind of circling back to the 6-year-old you or your daughter, how do you feel now about the triggers?
I mean, I feel calmer. I'm thinking I'm surprised with how how deep it was actually going for me, but that it feels calmer because I think before I had this the concept right of like yeah as long as I'm connected then that's the solution uh but without realizing oh that's been there it's been conditioned from just my whole being at that age of confusion and fear and I I just have to I'm supposed to learn the right thing and not trust myself and that's always what that comes back to with her is this like why aren't you trusting your intuition you know how to comfort her you know how to handle life right like not even just sickness but you know how to handle life even if you don't know what to do you have resources of figuring out what to do so
Mhm.
why are you not trusting yourself
And the reason is
like
because when you were 6, because you weren't taught, nobody gave you permission outside, but here I am giving you permission to, like, you have permission
yeah
fully to trust your intuition, to connect to the divine. When you don't logically know what to do, check intuitively. When you don't know
hmm
what to do on this level, go to the next level deeper within yourself, which
yeah
requires
yeah
more calm and more
yeah right
trust, more
yeah
intelligence.
exactly
The higher you go in
right
your head, the more
hmm
knowledge you can get. The deeper you go within your heart,
hmm
the more intelligence.
that makes sense yeah 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 like one way is human and the other way is divine that makes sense
And on
that
even
feels so
higher level than
stable
that, human is divine too. And human is
Hmm.
divine in human form.
Mm.
Or the
Okay,
divine
yeah,
is
yeah, that makes
human
sense.
in, human is the divine in human form, or the divine is
Right,
human in
right.
divine form. Yeah. However
Just
you want to put it.
incarnate. Yeah,
And of course,
yeah,
there's
that makes sense.
levels, like there's different levels of people are at different levels of greatness, which means
Right,
more
sure.
repetitions. Yeah. But
Yeah, yeah. It just it feels so much more stable. Yeah. I feel like that's the key. Because that I've always had that memory in my head of watching Cujo and then panicking. Like I remember I was watching in front of the TV in one room and then I like ran to my parents' room and I was just like having a panic attack on the bed. So that's always been there as like this early trauma. I just didn't realize, of course, I knew it was related to the stuff with my throat and the phobia, but I didn't realize how much it was really all about everything we've talked about, which feels so obvious now because everything is coming back to that.
and I do feel like in our first session, we did clear the root of the phobia. And I said at the
Yeah.
end that there might be other parts that are going to come
Yep.
up that if there's a phobia, it's a younger part 100% of the time. And
Yeah.
this is general, but that's what, not necessarily where or how, but so that's true.
Yeah.
But if that younger part, it's underdeveloped and it's doing its
Mhm.
best to speak up. It's like, I need help and I don't know how
Right.
to ask any other way. And then once it gets
Yeah.
help, other parts are going to be like, "Me?"
We can do that.
So if we do the same trigger,
Yeah.
it can't be as powerful because we remove the root. But the behavior can
Uh-huh.
still mimic, partially be there. You can't ever get it 100% back. But other parts might be like, hey, I'm going to ring the bell too if I'm going to get attention.
Right. Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
And then when I work with generally people longer term, that's like at
Yeah.
the very beginning. Then after a while, I give them permission and then do the different like anchoring or suggestions like, well, let's come up with different alternatives to your unconscious mind. Especially if I meet with people regularly, then they're like, um, they just know to like they write a list of things they're going to be working on or things that came up in between.
Yeah.
And then so it's just like, oh, and then those unconscious parts are just they get their needs met. They're like, I'm going to be taken care of because I'm gonna be working with Jeremiah. But
Right.
for the people that don't, it's just like, well, I have to go back to the thing that worked. I have to like ring
Mm-hmm.
the bell or
Mm-hmm.
light the flare,
Right.
but it's
Yeah.
not going to be the same intensity. So that's where I felt right away. You're like, and I always check in with people always when there's a big transformation and
Hmm.
healing. I was like, let's check in about a week or so, and see if either it's either cleared, or there's like a little bit of cleanup. And then generally the cleanup is it's not dirty. It just means there's other parts that need attention too.
Right.
And
Right. Yeah.
and that's like awesome.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
always leads to a different part of the timeline. And yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. That. Yeah. Because, like you said, that would we were working with what a 3 or 4 year old before, and now
Mhm.
it's 6 or 7. Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
And if there's any other parts that are listening
Yeah.
that come
Yes.
up, just know that you don't have to, or they don't have to like bring the nauseousness. You can just be like, hey, like instead of running to mom and dad's or mom's side of the bed at 3 in the morning and standing up
Mhm.
freakily, they could slide a note under the door and knock, hey mom, is this a good time? So like you can have younger parts say like, hey, and then you can reach out and
Yeah.
we'll clear.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. I love that. Okay. Perfect. That's great. It feels great. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
But let's just do one more big loop to see, ask your unconscious mind or the divine, is there anything else while we're here at this time that any unconscious parts needs to receive or come to the present moment that has to do with this? Because this is very important.